Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Today we are going to be looking at the abduction and the disappearance of Jennifer Joyce Kesse from Orlando, Florida. I'm going to be putting up the contact information if you have any information on her case. Don't give it to me. I'm not the person to take sensitive information. I will be giving you the proper contact information. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here's a picture of Jennifer Kesse. She was born on May 20th, 1981. She stands at 5 foot 8 inches tall, and Jennifer is strong, she's young, she's fit, she has blonde hair and green eyes. She had graduated from the University of Central Florida with honors, and initially she wanted to be a doctor, but she decided to study accounting and finance instead. And while she was at UCF, she joined the Alpha Delta Phi sorority, and Jennifer was currently, at the time of her disappearance, she was living alone and she was working at a timeshare company called Central Florida Investments, otherwise known as Westgate Resorts, and she was their finance manager. She had completed an internship with the company before she worked there, and while she worked there, she streamlined their financials. She saved the company quite a bit of money, and as a result, the hardworking Jennifer had received 3 multiple promotions in a year. So it was 15 years ago, Tuesday, January 24th, 2006, when 24-year-old Jennifer Kesse was living at 3735 Conroy Road at the Mosaic Condominiums, number 2226. The Mosaic property was off Conroy Road near the Mall of Millenia in Orlando, Florida. If you don't know, the Mall of Millenia is our upscale mall. It has all the high-end stores, almost to the tune of Rodeo Drive. Not so high, but up there. So if you want fancy shopping and you want to drop some money, you go to the Mall of Millenia and not the Florida Mall, which is down the road. Jennifer paid $210,000 for her 1-bedroom luxury condo with her own money. Jennifer had lived in her condo for only 2 months. The 3-story Mosaic luxury condos were in the process of being renovated from apartments. So what that means is you have a community that's apartments, and for whatever reason, someone decides to turn them into condos. And in many cases, there's a large amount of renovation that's involved. If you see the pictures here on the screen, this is what it looked like. So half of the units were empty at the time of her disappearance, and there was around-the-clock construction. Jennifer moved in to the Mosaic in Thanksgiving of 2005 and was the first person to close on a property there. The luxury and gated, I use this in air quotes, community wasn't so gated at the time due to the ongoing construction, and the security allegedly consisted of 2 maintenance people in golf carts smoking weed. Here's an aerial view of the Mosaic after construction was complete, and the unit with the big red X is the one in which Jennifer lived. Jennifer had not yet changed the locks because of the workers needing access to the condominium for renovation. So just put a little pin in that bit of information. So let's talk about Jennifer and her family. Jennifer has a close-knit family. Her father, Drew Kesse, and her mother, Joyce Kesse, along with her younger brother, Logan Kesse, 3 years younger than her. And she had a boyfriend, a long-distance relationship with Rob Allen. She had great friends from her sorority, and she even had friends like, I think his name was Scott Thuman, who ended up being a journalist who helped to cover her case and get it out into the public eye. When I first started researching her case, of course, I found a lot of the family photos that have been put up on their Facebook page, which I've used quite a few of them here because they're adorable. When I was doing the research on newspapers.com for any older articles on Jennifer, I found things from when she was a kid. From when she was in elementary school, she was always getting A's, and she was getting honor society and dean's list. So Jennifer is a smart girl. She's a smart woman. One of her friends was quoted, "She's got the whole package. She's just one of those girls you go to for anything." She's got street smarts and book smarts. She's a very bright girl. So Jennifer was dating Rob Allen for about a year, and she would visit his place in Fort Lauderdale on alternate weekends. So before she went missing, she went on a vacation with her boyfriend. Jennifer, Rob, his friend and wife went on a 4-day trip to St. Croix, and they stayed at a timeshare in St. Croix on that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So Rob lives in Fort Lauderdale, which it is approximately a 3-hour drive from Orlando. She had been gone before her disappearance, and on January 23rd, at the end of the trip, Jennifer drove from South Florida at Rob's place straight to work in Ocoee. So she did not go back to the Mosaic right away. She went right into work, and apparently this was a pattern. This is how they handled their long-distance relationship. Seemingly on weekends, it was easier for her to get ready at his place and just drive into Ocoee, and then at the end of that first workday, then go home to her place. So on the morning of the 23rd, she got up, she filled her gas tank before leaving Fort Lauderdale. Again, this was the usual pattern for the couple. She drives to Orlando and goes to work in Ocoee. Ocoee is a suburb of Orlando, by the way. And she does a full day at work at the Westgate, and then she leaves about 6 o'clock in the afternoon. She goes to her condo at Mosaic, where she spoke to friends and family over the phone. And this is how I believe the sequence of telephone calls went. So I could be wrong, but I think this is how it went, that she spoke with her mother earlier in the day. And then whenever she was driving home from work is about the time she talked to her father, Drew, because Drew said he remembered he was cooking dinner at 6:15. And so he talked to Jennifer. I think she was driving home from Westgate to Mosaic. And Logan, her little brother, lived at home at the time. And he hops on the phone, takes the phone from Dad and tells Jennifer about his friend's left behind cell phone in her condo. Okay, so this is really important because I think everybody, police included, got sidetracked by this bit of information I'm going to tell you coming up right here. Here's what happened. When Jennifer was in St. Croix, she invited her little brother to come and stay in the condo because, hey, it's next to all the attractions. It's next to iDrive. It's next to Howl at the Moon and all this stuff. And so he came up with friends and stayed in her place while she was in St. Croix, and one of his friends left a phone there. So this is where I think everybody got off on the wrong track, because when Logan hopped on the phone to ask Jennifer to overnight the phone to Travis, she knew that she could FedEx it from her work. And she tells her brother that she hadn't even yet been into the condo and that she will FedEx the phone tomorrow from work. She never said that she would mail it that night, because essentially she knew that mailing it at that time of night, going, say, to the closest post office, which one of them, we have a one that stays open, I don't know if it's 24 hours, but it's near the airport. She could have gone there and overnighted it, but it wouldn't have gotten there any faster than if she'd done overnight the next morning from work. And you got to think, she worked at Westgate. That's timeshares. They do overnights of contracts all the time. She never said she was going to step out that night and mail overnight the phone. She said she'd mail it from work via overnight mail. Does that make sense? Later, Jen speaks with Travis and tells Travis he'd missed some calls and tells him to check his voicemail. And I believe that the last folks she spoke with were her best friend Lauren and her boyfriend Rob Allen. So just to recap, the folks that were at her condo while she was in St. Croix were her brother, Logan, one of his friends, Travis Bourguignon. I think that's like beef bourguignon. They stayed there. I believe that one of her ex-boyfriends named Matt Sullivan might have stayed there. I don't know if he just slept there or was there at the pool. I guess her brother was considering this like a going away party is what he called it. And he said that they enjoyed Orlando. They went to a party on iDrive. They went to Howl at the Moon. And then they enjoyed the pool there at the Mosaic. And that during this time period, Logan did live at home. And Travis, again, he left his cell phone accidentally at her place. And upon her return, she agreed to FedEx the cell phone to Travis from her work. The last known person to speak with Jennifer was her boyfriend via telephone. It was 9:57 p.m., so almost 10, and Jennifer was tired from the trip, then driving straight into work, and she got home, so she was in bed, and she was speaking to him from her cell phone. Also, there was a landline, and it's believed that she was speaking to him from her cell phone. So Rob Allen lived in Fort Lauderdale, as we've already established, and people have said that they had a quote-unquote fight, but that is not accurate. Allegedly, Jennifer was longing for them to be together because they're in this long-distance relationship, and said, paraphrased, essentially like, I don't think you miss me as much as I miss you, that kind of stuff. Not really a fight per se. So allegedly, Jennifer was in bed or getting ready for bed. And please note, this was a woman who would not even leave the house to get gas at night. Everyone that knew her has stated that Jennifer was extremely safety conscious, because before even having children, her parents, Drew and Joyce, had been held up at gunpoint. So they raised her to be aware of her surroundings. Jennifer kept pepper spray on her keychain. She liked Law and Order, and she tried to imagine what she would do and how she would react in dangerous situations. She would talk about the Law and Order episodes with her mother, and they would talk about, oh, if you're in a trunk, kick out the tail light, and different ways to handle scary situations. And Jennifer was so safety conscious that she would make safety calls while running errands. Like when she was at the gym working out, if she saw strangers, she'd get on her cell phone. On January 24th, Jennifer did not text or call her boyfriend that morning, but Rob assumed she was just busy at work. It was her second day back to work. She had a meeting. It was her habit to call or text him while she was on the way into work, but she didn't, and she was supposed to lead a meeting at work, but she failed to appear. Clearly concerned, by around 11 a.m., her employer calls her parents to inquire if she was sick. And some people think this is hinky. I don't know why, because see, her dad was friends with the CFO of the company, and her parents were listed as her emergency contact. So this is how it goes. When you don't show up to work, sometimes they call your emergency contact. This is not strange. Apparently they called and said, hey, Drew, Jen didn't show up for work. Do you know what's going on? And he said, I'll call her. So without knowledge as to her whereabouts, her parents called her cell phone. They texted her. They emailed her. They called her current boyfriend, Rob Allen. She wasn't picking up her calls. We're going straight to voicemail. Her parents were immediately alarmed. They knew immediately something was wrong, because the phone calls they placed to their daughter went straight to voicemail, which was highly unusual. And Rob Allen, who was notified of her disappearance or her not being available to be found on the phone, was notified around lunchtime, and he drove to Orlando. Jennifer's father, Drew, calls back the work to keep them updated and says that he's driving to Orlando. So he calls Logan, who was at the gym back where the parents lived, and galvanizes Logan into action. Logan gets one of the friends that had been up in the condo during that vacation, I think it's Travis, to come with him. And as they travel to Drew and Joyce, he has to go get her from the hospital, I believe. So they're traveling to Orlando, and then Logan's going to travel as well. And I believe Logan beats his parents there. Drew and Joyce are driving. They're making calls. They call the police. They call the local hospitals. They even call the jail. At 11:15, her parents had called Mosaic to do a wellness check on Jennifer. First, Drew asked them to check to see if the car's outside her residence, and it was not. Allegedly, her car's not here, they said. And her house number, just for the record, and her parking spot matched, and they were marked. So they were clearly marked. So you could see if she parked in her spot, which spot was hers, whether her car was there or not, and you could kind of assume that she was there or not. So the worker tells Drew in order to get into the condo, they had to have two management enter the residence. He said, fine, get another person. So two managers, I believe one was named Brian, they enter the condo, and they note that the door was locked, but the alarm was not on. The managers walked through the condo with the Kesses on the phone. So for those who think that maybe something went on with the managers in there, well, the Kesses were on the phone. So during the walkthrough with the managers, I think they said, well, she's not here. It doesn't look like there's been any kind of obvious struggle or anything. I think they saw one of her bags on the, when you enter into the condo, there was like a bag on the ground or something. And I think the mail was there. Just random things like that, random observations, but no Jennifer. While Drew and Joyce travel the 2 hours to Orlando, meanwhile, her brother Logan and his friend Travis head to Mosaic, and they arrive about 3. They arrive right before Drew and Joyce. And this is what they see when they arrive at Jennifer's condo. Logan Kesse sees 2 men sitting in a white construction van parked beside Jennifer's parking spot. Make of that what you will. When Logan, who is looking around, asking people what they know, what they've seen, when he knocks on the window to inquire about his sister, the 2 workers allegedly in the van, and I believe that's Chino and Ben. I'm going to use their nicknames. I'm not going to put anybody out there as a suspect until the police say so. They allegedly ignore Logan Kesse, refuse to make eye contact with him, and he becomes hostile. He's sitting there becoming more and more frantic, saying, like, have you seen the girl who lives up there? To me, that's a rather innocuous statement. I understand that he was getting more and more excited, but most people would just shake their heads or something. But he's just asking anyone he sees on the property about his sister. Did they see his sister? Did you see that blonde girl that lives up there? Did you see her? But many did not speak English. For example, after he frustratingly doesn't get any kind of response from the 2 people in the construction van right by her parking spot, he goes around to a worker at the back of her property who said in broken English, no, I don't know, like to his questioning. And he starts going, well, who are the guys up front? Who are the guys, around on the other side? And he allegedly said the guy was like, no English, no English. And I guess Logan was getting so overwrought and upset that the man kneeled down while talking to Logan. Very submissive posture and clearly terrified of the angry Logan. I mean, I get it. I guess people found that suspicious as well, but to me, it just sounds to me like maybe it was someone who is maybe illegal or the like, and you have some guy coming up to you and he's very excited and he's asking you questions and maybe you don't speak English that well. I want to know what the construction workers that were in that van, or the men who were in that van, saw that afternoon. I want to know that. It was around 3 o'clock. What were they doing sitting in a white van next to Jennifer's parking space? It wasn't lunchtime. What were they doing? I want to know that. That's just what I want to know. And on the screen, you see a big Google Earth picture of the fully built out Mosaic condominiums. And just note that in 2006, Google Earth was not available. And back in 2006, there wasn't security cameras literally everywhere you went. There wasn't GPS. And there was a lot of technology that we have today that we just, we take it for granted. Well, they didn't have it in 2006. Drew and Joyce drove to the sheriff's office only to discover that they were over the jurisdictional line. So they went ahead to Jen's condo. And at 3:15, Drew and Joyce find her condo in the following condition. The mail was on the counter, so she had checked her mail the day before. 3 folded outfits were on her bed, 2 skirts and 1 pair of pants, and no one knows what she wore to work, or was going to wear to work, I should say. The bed had been slept in on one side. Rob said, quote, Jen always laid out her work clothes the night before. So that was her habit to do. T-shirt and underwear were found on her bathroom floor. The hairdryer was on the counter. Her contacts were missing. Now, guys, this was back in the day where you tended to wear your contacts and you didn't, you took them out overnight. There weren't one-day contacts. Her contacts were missing. The case was there. The contacts were missing. The glasses were there. So seemingly when she left out that day, she had her contacts in. A damp shower towel was over the dryer. Joyce says that Jennifer was a morning shower person. I understand this. I am as well. I do not take showers at night unless there's some reason to, like I've gotten dirty or there's something going on that night I'm going out. Otherwise, I always take my showers in the daytime because of my hair. I mean, usually when you have a habit, it's because you want to do your hair that morning and you don't want your hair to be not fresh. For whatever reason, she was a morning shower person, and the shower was wet in the corners, meaning where your products are, your conditioner and your shampoo, it was still wet in the corner of the shower. Seemingly, Jennifer got up that morning and took a shower, but Jennifer was missing. She seemingly got ready for work and didn't make it there. And the Kesses initially assumed her brown purse was also missing. So you will see pictures of her shamrock tattoo and a brown purse. But allegedly the brown purse was later found in a luggage, but it's thought that a purse is still missing. The Kesses found her pepper spray on the counter because she'd removed it from her key fob in order to travel. So think, if she had to go on a plane at all, back then you couldn't have your pepper spray. That's like one of those items you can't bring on an airplane. So she had taken it off and I guess didn't put it back on her key fob. The cops meet the Kesses at her condo. Jennifer's parents didn't note any kind of disturbance in the condo, and Jennifer's car, a black Chevy Malibu, was also missing. Her briefcase was also missing. Seemingly, everything that she would have taken to work was gone. And I purport that's because she was on her way to work. That she had perhaps walked out down the steps, down to her car, and was abducted. The Kesses reported that the condo was made clean. And as was her habit, we were told by her mother that Jennifer kept her house immaculate, but she kept her car really messy, and she also kept her bathroom messy. And I think her mother called her a car pig. And it's kind of funny because, some people are like that. They find an area that they allow themselves to be messy, and allegedly that was her car, and allegedly she kept her condo really nice and clean. And the only thing they noticed, so there was a large shoulder strap duffel that was inside the condo when you came in through the door. They noticed the mail was there. Seemingly nothing was awry inside the condo. The Kesses found that pepper spray that she usually had on her key fob was on the counter. So seemingly she went out that morning without her pepper spray on her key fob. And additionally, Drew has told us in interviews that she had some kind of a security alarm over her bed. I think all the residents did. So if you were attacked in your bed, you could call, I think it's 911 or emergency services, or it's the security for the building. I'm not sure, but you absolutely had an emergency system over the bed. So if she had been attacked in her bed, she would have been able to call for help. And also note that anyone working in that condo complex would know about this safety safeguard. So maybe they wouldn't attack people in their bedrooms. Food for thought. As I mentioned earlier, the Mosaic condominiums had no security cameras. None. Throughout the whole complex. Had no security cameras installed at the time of Jennifer's disappearance. The place where she was living was undergoing renovations from apartments into condos, like I mentioned before. And what this meant was that generally the place was under construction around the clock. I don't mean to say that there was somebody right outside her window, digging up the parking lot, all right? It could have been in another area of these freestanding condos. Also, the guard gate was typically left open for the construction staff to come and go. And during the conversion, there were also not the usual renters as the property was being renovated. So many units were left unsold and left vacant. Allegedly, a few units were being utilized by the handymen who were working at Mosaic, with, for example, up to 10 people allegedly staying in a condo. So people who were working around there maybe didn't have a home, and they were allowed to stay in some of the empty units. Okay? Allegedly. And some buyers who bought after Jennifer, or in the process of it, may have been using some of their own workers. You never know what second parties were in there. And to add insult to injury, the entire back area of Mosaic at that time was woods of scrub, pine, and brush, and not yet gated. So someone could have come in on foot and avoided everybody. And this is the part of the story where I think the injustice and the incompetence come into play. And maybe that's a little bit too harsh, but initially the Orlando Police Department, bless their hearts, I know you have a tough job, they treated Jennifer's disappearance like she just went away. Quote, she probably had a fight with her boyfriend and she will be back. That's paraphrased. That's very, very dismissive. The first responding officers did not think Jennifer was in grave danger. They didn't think there was something amiss or awry. However, her parents pushed back. They knew it was never in her character to up and leave or to even miss work. Let's think back to her being a kid, getting straight A's all the time and being security conscious and watching out for her sorority sisters and being the mother hen type, and just getting all these promotions at work and having a successful relationship for a year and going on vacation and buying her own condo. I mean, this is the kind of girl she is. Her parents know her character. You know what I mean? They pushed back. Her condo was not processed by the OPD as her family were already allegedly in it by the time they showed up. You get it? So allegedly the police searched all the vacant units. Allegedly. Regarding the wellness check, when the Kesses had called in to Mosaic and requested the wellness check, and the criticisms of the management of Mosaic and the OPD's first response and the family treating it like a crime scene, regarding that issue right there, why would the family have treated the condo like a crime scene? They walked in, it didn't look like a crime scene. Nothing looked awry, okay? At that point, Jennifer could have been in a car accident. She could have passed out. She could have fallen down. There could be some viable reason that her car was not there and she was not there that didn't involve something going on in the condo, all right? So no one assumes that during a wellness check, like when they called into Mosaic, that the person had been abducted. That's usually not your first thought. Or it could be like, oh, did she fall down? Did she have a diabetic issue? She shouldn't have diabetes, but something can happen. Did she slip in the shower? Go in there and do a wellness check. It's okay for people to have walked through the condo. It's okay that her parents showed up and looked around and maybe moved some things around because they didn't realize that being in the condo was such a big deal. So the OPD, in my opinion, used the fact that people had been in there and were in there, like her parents were there, to not process the dang condo. All right? Just let's put that in the file as what I don't like that. You could ask the Kesses to leave, fingerprint the Kesses, and then deduct their fingerprints and DNA from whatever's in the condo. I mean, that could have happened, but it didn't happen. Seemingly, the first officers who responded to the call did not find it urgent, and the initial detectives did not take notes. Yes, you heard that right. These old school detectives allegedly did not like computers and did not take notes on this case. I'll let that sink in. The Kesses began to use Jennifer's condo as a command center, and they right away began to print flyers. I believe that a lot of her sorority sisters came also to help pass out the flyers. Here's a picture of Logan passing out the flyers. Seemingly, the OPD thought Jennifer may have left her condo that night to overnight the phone, okay? And as such, they assumed it was a night abduction, that Jennifer had gotten up out of bed, dead tired, talking to Rob, talking about how she wants to go to sleep. All of a sudden, she gets up, changes her clothes, gets fully dressed out, mind you, because she's got her contacts are gone. All these things that would be consistent with what she would take to work are all gone, and that she went and went on a mission to overnight this phone, and that is when she drove out is at the point she went missing. Okay, that was allegedly what the police thought. Are we to believe that Jen got out of the bed being tired to mail a cell on a whim when she could mail it from work and already said that's what she was going to do? I don't believe that's viable, but that is literally what the police believed. Just for the record, I don't have any personal information about the Jennifer Kesse case, but I do want to be transparent and let you know that I did go on a search for her with a search and rescue team that was a dog team that was certified through FEMA, and this was a couple years after she had went missing. So the areas we searched probably had been searched many times before, I'm guessing. So I didn't know anything about the dynamic between the police and the Kesses. We just showed up for a call out. We would get call outs from the fire department or the police department. And we went to the command center with the dogs and we searched the areas that OPD requested. And if I remember correctly, it was the large lot that was near the back of Jennifer's condo. And our dogs didn't react or alert to any decomp or anything, according to my memory. I also believe that the area had been previously searched. And I don't recall anything that they may have told us to look out for other than maybe cell phones. Because, it has been such a long time. And she isn't the only person we ever got a call out on. And sometimes we would just be told to look out for, like, say, a distinctive key fob or a piece of clothing or, cell phones or any particular thing. They don't share their theory of the case with you. But just by going by news reports, and I guess through what we talked about as we work the dogs, is I was under the impression at that time that Jennifer had gone out at night to perhaps mail the phone. Now, through time and through research, I found out that that was totally inaccurate. And we were running with inaccurate information. So when we search with the dogs, sometimes tracking dogs, in this case, cadaver dogs, we note anything that's unusual in the environment. Like we note clothing, cell phones, credit cards, animal bones, any make and manner of things that we take a note of it and we report that back to the authorities. And also note that many places in Orlando, which are densely wooded, they have homeless camps. So it's not unusual to find clothing and little setups in the woods. But on the search I recall that we did with our group, there wasn't anything of note to be found, sadly. So I just wanted to let you know that. So I think this is where we're going to end part 1. Please hit the subscribe button so that you could be notified when part 2 comes up. It should be forthcoming very soon. Please take a look at this image. This is an image of a person of interest seemingly involved in the abduction of Jennifer Kesse. Take a look at this photo, all right? We will get into this video and the security cameras that captured this image off-site down the road. And yeah, so if you know anything about this case, I'm going to leave the contact numbers right here so that you can call the authorities with any kind of tips or information you might have about Jennifer Kesse. You can always call Crime Line at 1-800-423-8477 or 1-800-423-TIPS. You can remain anonymous. You can also go to Facebook, Find Jennifer Kesse, that is run by her family. And also they have a GoFundMe, Help Us Find Jennifer Kesse, and you can leave a message there. I don't even think you have to leave a donation to leave the message. There's also a family contact number that I'm going to leave up here. If any of these numbers are inaccurate or outdated, please let me know in the comment section and I will revise this. Also, there's the number for the Orlando Police Department, though, as I believe the Kesses now have taken over the case from the OPD because they had to sue for the case files. So anyway, long story short, you can still call the OPD if you do have information. But if you want to give information and you want to remain anonymous, you can always use the Crime Line. All right? So without further ado, all the prayers to Jennifer and her family, and let's bring Jennifer home. Thanks. Take care. Bye.